Welcome back to TPS. Every NFL team has a different history, but they can all look back on that one sad injury that derailed them at some point in time. Yes, injuries are simply part of football. The players know it, the coaches know it, and the fans know it. But what if that one guy didn't get hurt at a specific time? Everything could have been different for many of these franchises. Here's a look at the worst franchise-changing injury in the history of all 32 teams.
At TPS, we post videos every single day, so don't forget to click the subscribe button to subscribe. Then click the notification bell to be notified when we post a new video.
Arizona Cardinals Carson Palmer 2014. Palmer won his first 6 games in 2014 and he had 11 touchdowns against just 3 interceptions. He was enjoying the best season of his career up to that point. But Palmer unfortunately tore his ACL in Week 10 against the St. Louis Rams, thus ending his MVP-like season. Arizona salvaged an 11-5 record and a wild-card berth without Palmer, but they were crushed by the Carolina Panthers in the opening round of the postseason. Arizona went from being the favorites in the NFC to being a very weak playoff team that season. Palmer did get them to the NFC title game the following season, but they lost it to Carolina again, and that was about as close as he'd get to taking the Cards to a Super Bowl. Atlanta Falcons Michael Vick 2003. Vick guided the Falcons to a playoff spot in 2002 and expectations were high entering 2003. Unfortunately, the dual-threat QB broke his fibula during a preseason game and he missed most of the year. Backups Doug Johnson and Kurt Kittner struggled to replace Vick. By the time the latter returned from injury, Atlanta's season had already gone down the drain. Vick led Atlanta to wins in 3 of their final 4 contests, but they only finished with an 11-5 record. Vick got Atlanta back to the NFC Championship game in 2004, but they wouldn't make the playoffs with him again after that. Baltimore Ravens Ray Lewis 2002. Coming off consecutive playoff seasons, the Ravens hoped to contend again in 2002. Unfortunately, franchise star linebacker Ray Lewis suffered a shoulder injury and missed all but 5 games. As a result, the Ravens finished a mere 7-9 to miss the postseason. Baltimore also finished a mere 19th in scoring D. They were 4th the year prior and 1st in 2000 when they won the Super Bowl. From 2002 to 2007, Baltimore missed the playoffs 4 times, and they didn't win a single postseason game in that span. So yeah, Lewis's injury sent them down a dark path for a little while there. Buffalo Bills Jim Kelly. It wasn't one specific injury that derailed Jim Kelly's career. It was a variety of them. Kelly led the Bills to 4 straight Super Bowl appearances in the 90s, though they lost all 4. Near the end of his career, Kelly suffered a concussion, knee injury, and more. He had to miss the Bills' epic comeback game against the Houston Oilers in the wild-card round. Backup Frank Reich paved the way for that historic comeback instead. The Bills lost in the wild-card round in 1996, and Kelly chose to retire, having endured the worst season of his career. The Bills would only make the playoffs 3 times after Kelly's retirement between 1997 and 2018. They didn't win a single postseason game in that span either. Carolina Panthers Cam Newton 2018. The Panthers started out 6-2 in 2018, but quarterback Cam Newton was fighting through a shoulder injury. He wasn't at 100%, and the Carolina offense fell apart entirely because of it. This team would lose its next 6 games before deactivating Newton for the final 2 weeks. Carolina would finish 7-9 after such a promising start. If Newton had stayed healthy, this Carolina team could have done some serious damage in the postseason. Chicago Bears Gale Sayers 1970. The Hall of Fame running back earned 4 Pro Bowl selections and captured 2 rushing titles during his brief career. Sayers only lasted in the NFL from 1965 to 71. He only played in 4 games over the 1970 and 71 seasons due to serious knee injuries. Sayers had no choice to retire after struggling in the 1972 preseason. Chicago endured 4 straight losing seasons and they wouldn't win another playoff game until 1984. On the bright side, the Bears found a tremendous replacement for Sayers in Walter Payton, who also went on to become one of the most dominant running backs in NFL history. So maybe Sayers' injuries weren't that devastating in the long run. Cincinnati Bengals Andy Dalton 2015. Dalton led the Bengals to a 10-2 start in 2015, and they were in the prime position to earn the top seed in the AFC. However, Dalton suffered a fractured thumb on his right throwing hand, ending his season abruptly. A.J. McCarron took over as the backup, and the Bengals lost out on a first-round bye via tiebreaker. The Bengals narrowly lost 18-16 to Pittsburgh in the AFC wildcard round, missing out on a chance to win their first playoff game since 1990. If Dalton was healthy, the Bengals probably get a bye, and maybe they go on to win the Super Bowl. They've been a train wreck ever since that season, posting losing records in each of the next 3 years. Cleveland Browns Courtney Brown. The Browns drafted Penn State defensive end Courtney Brown with the first overall pick in 2000, hoping he'd be a true franchise changer. But Brown never reached his full potential due to so many injuries, including ones to his knee, foot, and elbow, plus a torn bicep. He recorded just 19 sacks over his 6 NFL seasons. The Denver Broncos tried reviving his career in 2005, but Brown wasn't able to make it work. Dallas Cowboys Troy Aikman 2000. Aikman was the quarterback of the Cowboys' 90s dynasty that won 3 Super Bowl championships, but injuries broke everything up in short time. A spinal cord injury forced Michael Irvin to retire in 1999. A year later, Troy Aikman played his final season in the NFL after suffering so many concussions. Aikman was only 34 when he retired. He didn't have much more to play for, mind you, but it's a shame that he couldn't add more to his legacy. The Cowboys were a perennial loser in the NFC during the early 2000s, and after Aikman's retirement, the team didn't win its next playoff game until 2009. Denver Broncos Terrell Davis 1999. The star running back only played in the NFL from 1995 to 2001, but he sure made the most of it. Together, Davis and John Elway guided Denver to consecutive Super Bowl 31 and 32 championships. He was named the 1998 league MVP as well. Even though Elway retired after the 1998 season, Davis still left the Broncos with some hope. Unfortunately, he tore his ACL in 1999, however, and had to miss the final 12 games. Injuries forced Davis to miss 11 games in 2000, and he missed half of the 2001 campaign after undergoing surgery on both his knees. Davis finally retired after the 2001 season. The Broncos were largely irrelevant for a while after that until Peyton Manning came along in 2012. Detroit Lions Billy Sims 1984. The Oklahoma product was taken number 1 overall by the Lions in 1980. Sims came along as advertised with 3 Pro Bowl selections plus an Offensive Rookie of the Year award. Sims hit 1,000 yards in 3 of his first 4 years. Sadly, Sims suffered a gruesome knee injury in 1984, and it kept him out of football until he retired in 1986. Sims had an unsuccessful comeback attempt in 1989. The good news is that Detroit landed a new superstar running back named Barry Sanders in 1989. Ever hear of him? But after Sims' injury, the Lions recorded losing seasons every year from 1984 to 1990. Green Bay Packers Sterling Sharpe 1994. We're nitpicking a bit here as the Packers have been the NFL's most historic organization throughout the league's 100-year existence. Thankfully, their star players mainly stayed healthy during the Bart Starr, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers years. But still, we can't help but wonder what the Packers would have done if 5-time Pro Bowl wide receiver Sterling Sharpe wasn't forced to retire at the age of 29, following a career-ending neck injury suffered in 1994. The Packers became a juggernaut with Favre, earning 2 Super Bowl appearances and winning it all in the 1996 season. Favre also won 3 MVP awards. The Favre-led Packers are one of the greatest dynasties that never was. If he had Sharpe at his side, you'd have to think the Packers would have won even more. Houston Texans Matt Schaub 2011. Schaub led the Texans to a 7-3 start, and they looked poised to earn the first-round bye in the AFC. But Schaub suffered a Lisfranc injury in Week 10 against Tampa Bay, thus ending his season. To make matters worse, backup Matt Leonard broke his collarbone and had to miss the remainder of 2011 as well. Backup TJ Yates did enough to lead the Texans to a division title, but they lost to the Ravens by a touchdown in the divisional round. If Schaub was healthy, maybe the Texans would have gone even further. Indianapolis Colts Andrew Luck 2018. The Colts landed the top pick and took Andrew Luck first overall. He took Indy to the playoffs 4 times, including a trip to the 2014 AFC Championship. Indy won 2 division titles under Luck's watch too. But ahead of the 2019 season, Luck shocked the world when he announced his retirement. Luck said the amount of injuries he suffered completely destroyed his desire to play football. Still, you never hear about a star QB retiring before his 30th birthday. But Luck did, and the Colts' hopes of contending for a Super Bowl in 2019 were suddenly gone just like that. Jacksonville Jaguars Leonard Fournette 2018. The Jaguars haven't had much success in the 21st century, so there haven't been any serious injuries that ruined the playoff push. That said, nagging injuries to the young star running back Leonard Fournette completely ruined a promising career. The Jags were coming off of a 2017 AFC title game appearance, and they started out 2-0 in 2018. But Fournette only played in 8 games as he dealt with a nagging hamstring injury. And even when he was on the field, Fournette was a total non-factor anyway, averaging a mere 3.3 yards per carry. The Jaguars had no choice but to let QB Blake Bortles run the offense, and he completely crumbled. The Jaguars won just 5 games and finished last in the AFC South altogether. Kansas City Chiefs Jamaal Charles 2011. The Pro Bowl running back had an MVP-like year in 2010 and led the Chiefs to an AFC West Division title. but Charles suffered an ACL tear in Week 2 of the 2011 season, and the Chiefs were without their star player for the rest of the year. The Chiefs finished 7-9 on the year, dead to last in the AFC West. To make matters worse, the Denver Broncos won the division on a 3-way tiebreaker with an 8-8 record. If Charles was healthy, KC would have totally won the division. Los Angeles Chargers, LADAINIAN Tomlinson 2007. A year after winning the MVP award, LT helped the Chargers win the AFC West Division again in 2007. But Tomlinson suffered an MCL sprain during the Chargers' divisional round victory against Indianapolis, and he could only manage 2 carries for 5 yards in the AFC Championship game against the Patriots. It didn't help that Phillip Rivers was playing on a torn ACL and that Antonio Gates was hurt. With Rivers banged up, the Chargers' offense was woeful in a 21-12 loss to New England. Tomlinson's injury and absence ruined the Chargers' chances of winning a Super Bowl with his star-studded core, and they endured a lengthy period of mediocrity after his injury. Los Angeles Rams Kurt Warner 2002. Warner won 2 MVP awards and led the Rams to a Super Bowl 34 championship, plus another berth in the big game 2 years later. But Warner suffered a broken finger and hand in the 2002 season and was largely unproductive. He started just 1 game in 2003 and lost a starting job to Mark Bulger. Warner was eventually released and he'd signed with the New York Giants. Bulger only had 2 good years with the Rams, and aside from 2 playoff appearances in 2003 and 4, his team didn't really go anywhere. They only ended a 13-year playoff drought in 2017. Warner joined the Arizona Cardinals and guided them to a Super Bowl 43 appearance, plus another NFC West Division title in 2009. What if the Rams had kept Warner over Bulger? Maybe they wouldn't have been so darn bad for a decade. Miami Dolphins Dan Marino 1993. Marino had been relatively healthy throughout his career, and the Fins were poised to compete for a Super Bowl in 1993. Sadly, Marino's season ended when he suffered a torn Achilles tendon, thus missing the final 11 games after leading his team to a 4-1 start. The Dolphins actually 9-2 after 11 games, even without Marino for over half of them, but lost their final 5 games to miss the playoffs, and they would never get past the divisional round again in Marino's career. So you can pinpoint the lost 1993 season as the moment where it all went downhill for this team. Minnesota Vikings Daunte Culpepper 2005. Culpepper was a 3-time Pro Bowler who led Minnesota to the 2000 NFC Championship game plus the 2004 divisional round. He and Randy Moss formed one dynamic quarterback-wide receiver duo. But Culpepper suffered a gruesome knee injury in the midst of the 2005 season, and the Vikings would miss the playoffs without him despite a 9-7 record. The Vikings traded Culpepper to Miami in the 2006 offseason. They wouldn't find a suitable replacement until Brett Favre came along in 2009. New England Patriots Dale Stingley 1978. Stingley was a stud wide receiver for the Patriots in the 1970s, and he looked to be part of their promising future. But during a 1978 preseason game against the Raiders, he collided with defensive back Jack Tatum when he tried to make a catch. He broke his 4th and 5th cervical vertebrae, thus ending his career. He also spent the remainder of his life as a quadriplegic. Without Stingley's skills and leadership, the Patriots struggled. They missed the playoffs 6 times between 1979 and 1984. New Orleans Saints Bobby Herbert 1991. Quarterback Bobby Herbert led the Saints to a 6-0 start in 1991, but he suffered a shoulder injury and had to miss several games. New Orleans went with backup Steve Walsh, who only won 3 of his 7 starts. Herbert returned for Week 16 and helped the Saints get into the playoffs with an 11-5 record, but they fell to Atlanta in the wildcard round. If he was healthy, maybe the Saints would have secured home field advantage and gone further in the playoffs. The Saints made the playoffs again in 1992, but fell to Philly in the wildcard round. They wouldn't make the postseason again until 2000. New York Giants Odell Beckham 2017. The Giants were fresh off of an 11-5 season, and while they were blown out by the Green Bay Packers in the wildcard round 1 year earlier, big things were still expected of the Giants heading into 2017. That is until Beckham went down with an ankle injury in the preseason. Beckham injured his ankle during a preseason game against the Cleveland Browns, and while he was able to return in Week 2 of the regular season, he was never quite the same and eventually suffered a season-ending ankle fracture in Week 5 against the Chargers. The Giants finished the season with a 3-13 record, and it marked the beginning of the end of OBJ's up-and-down tenure in New York. Beckham recently revealed some of his current Browns teammates informed him that then Browns defensive coordinator Greg Williams had told his players to target OBJ during that preseason game. He goes on to say that it was a life-changing injury, as it led to more injuries over the next couple of years before eventually paving the way for his move to Cleveland. New York Jets Joe Namath. Broadway Joe led the Jets to a Super Bowl III championship, and the team had all the markings to be a dynasty. Namath was healthy throughout his first 5 years, but knee injuries quickly piled up and derailed his career. Namath played a total of just 9 games over the 1970 and 71 seasons, and he was never able to regain his elite form. He stayed with the Jets until 1976, before joining the Rams for his swan song in 1977. The Jets didn't have a single winning season nor a playoff berth in the entire 70s decade. Gang Green hasn't won a Super Bowl since his retirement. Oakland Raiders Derek Carr 2016. Carr had an MVP-like year in 2016, throwing for 3,937 yards and 28 touchdowns against just 6 interceptions. The Raiders stood at 11-3 entering Week 16, but during a home game against the Colts, Carr suffered a fractured fibula that ended his season. Thus, Carr missed out on Oakland's first playoff berth since 2003. The team had to go with Connor Cook in its wildcard game against Houston, which was a blowout loss. Carr and the Raiders posted consecutive losing seasons in 2017 and 18. Things could have been so much different if he was healthy. Philadelphia Eagles, Donovan McNabb, 2005. The perennial Pro Bowler led the Eagles to a Super Bowl 39 appearance, where they narrowly lost to the Patriots. But McNabb fought through numerous injuries in 2005, including a sports hernia and bad thumb. After suffering a groin injury, McNabb was finally shut down for the year after he posted a 4-5 record. The Eagles struggled without McNabb, going 2-5 the rest of the way to finish with a woeful 6-10 record, their first losing season in 6 years. The Eagles would struggle with consistency over the long run until they won Super Bowl 52. Pittsburgh Steelers, Barry Foster, 1994. The Steelers began turning a corner in the early 90s thanks to the play of Barry Foster. He earned 2 straight Pro Bowl selections in 1992 and 93. Unfortunately, injuries began to plague Foster, and Bam Morris took over as the starting back in 1994. The Steelers stopped using Foster as a top back, and 94 marked his final season in the NFL. The Steelers weren't able to get over the hump without Foster, losing to the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl 30. It would be another 10 years until they reached the big game. San Francisco 49ers Steve Young, 1999. After spending several years as Joe Montana's understudy, Steve Young took over and led the 49ers to a Super Bowl 29 championship. He also won 2 MVP awards and kept the 49ers in perennial playoff contention in Jerry Rice's twilight years. But Young's career sadly came to an end in 1999 when he suffered a concussion after being sacked by Aeneas Williams of the Arizona Cardinals. He didn't return that season and Young was forced to retire. San Fran finished 4-12 that year as they began to enter a period of mediocrity after that. Seattle Seahawks Earl Thomas 2016. The Seahawks were crushing an NFC West Division title in 2016, and they were in contention to earn their 3rd Super Bowl trip in 4 years. But the Legion of Boom defense took a huge hit when Pro Bowl safety Earl Thomas broke his tibia in Week 13 against Carolina, thus ending his season. Seattle's secondary struggled throughout the rest of the year. They lost 2 of their next 3 games and lost out on the home field advantage. MVP Matt Ryan diced up the Hawks in the divisional round, and Seattle lost 36-20. The Seahawks missed the playoffs in 2017, and Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman left during the ensuing offseason. Thomas's injury in 2016 practically ended the Legion of Boom era. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Cadillac Williams 2007. The Auburn product won the 2005 Offensive Rookie of the Year award after rushing for 1,178 yards and 6 touchdowns, after a solid sophomore year in 2006. Williams suffered a gruesome patellar tendon tear in his right knee in 2007. He was done for the year after 4 games, and Williams had to watch his team win the NFC South from the sidelines. They were dispatched by the Giants in the wildcard round. Williams tore his patellar tendon in his left knee the following year, thus ending his season after 6 games. He was never able to regain that star-like form when he returned, and Williams was out of the league after the 2011 season. The Bucs have been horrible ever since his injury woes started up. Tennessee Titans Marcus Mariota 2018. Titans fans will wonder for a long time what could have been in 2018 if this quarterback had stayed healthy. The Titans were in position to win a wild card spot in the AFC, but he suffered a stinger in Week 16 against Washington. He wasn't able to play for a do-or-die Week 17 against the Colts, with the winner booking the final wild card spot in the AFC. The Titans' offense lacked punch without him, as backup Blaine Gabbert struggled big time. Tennessee finished 9-7 to miss the playoffs, while the Colts snuck their way in. Too bad, because the Titans had the 3rd best scoring defense and a powerful rushing game. Maybe they could have made some noise with their quarterback. Washington Redskins Robert Griffin III. The Redskins traded a bundle of picks to the Rams so they could draft the Heisman Trophy winner with the number 2 selection in 2012. Griffin won the Offensive Rookie of the Year award and led Washington to an NFC East Division title that same year. but RG3 suffered a knee injury late in the season, and the Redskins had him play anyway in their wild-card matchup with the Seahawks, resulting in further damage to his knee. Griffin struggled in 2013, and he would suffer more injuries in 2014 and 15. The Redskins cut RG3 in the 2016 offseason, and they've been completely irrelevant since. This is now one of the worst franchises in professional sports. What do you think is the worst franchise-changing injury in your favorite team's history? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.